I wish everybody a very happy Valentine's Day in his love. Jai Baba, thank you for coming. Arnavaz was so special. And so I'm going to start this with just a little brief biography of her life. And most of it, if not all of it, is really coming from her book, Gift of God. And when Arnavaz first met Meher Baba, um, she was 8 years old. And at some point, she asked Baba the meaning of her name. And he said, Gift of God. And so she did use that for the title of her book. In 1924, her uncle Chanji began to follow Meher Baba. The large Dadachanji family was very worried about him because they believed there was only one avatar, and that was Zoroaster. But they wanted Chanji to be happy, and so they let it be. In 1927, Arnavas's father, a building contractor, was asked by Baba to construct a hostel for an engineering school in Pune. Arnavaz was 8 when her family went to stay in Pune. Chanji, and they were at Meherazad at the time, was anxious for the family to meet Meher Baba. So Baba asked them to come to Meherazad for a picnic lunch. 8-year Arnavaz was very excited. The family rented a small bus. They prepared the picnic lunch. When they got there, Baba was waiting for them when they entered the Dharamshala. And she writes, from the moment I walked into the room, my eyes were fixed on Baba. The impact beloved Baba had on me was so strong that today the memory of first meeting him is still fresh and alive. And that was their first meeting. When the project in Pune was completed, her family left and returned to Bombay, where they lived in Chanji's apartment. So from 1928 to 1933, Baba often stayed with them there. On one visit, her paternal cousin Nariman from Karachi also came. This was Nariman's first meeting with Meher Baba. Arnavaz was 10, Nariman 15. In 1928, again, Baba asked her father to go with the men Mandali and construct a cinema in Nasik. Arnavaz went to Nasik during her school holidays. So in 1929, she met Mera and the other women Mandali for the very first time. She fell in love with Mera at first sight. She remembers Mera and Naja from that initial meeting. Arnavas's first lesson in obedience to Baba came in 1934. She was first in her class at school, but Baba said for her not to continue with her studies. This concerned her a lot. She felt very unhappy and disappointed. So Baba said, okay, take 1 year off and then return to school. She was able to study enough to pass all her classes, so they accepted her when she went back. But then Baba said not to go to university, but to take a teaching course and become a teacher. Arnavaz began night classes and taught during the day. Nariman at this time came to Bombay to complete his paperwork for travel to England. He had completed his studies in Pakistan or India, I'm not sure, and then wanted to continue his studies in Manchester, England, where he had received scholarship. He chose this school because it had the best course in chemistry. Arnavaz enjoyed his company, but she had no romantic inclinations and thought he understood that. Her greatest desire was to lead a spiritual, single life. She simply wanted to have Nariman as her friend. In 1938, Baba again celebrated his birthday on a grand scale in Meherazad. Goher and Arnavaz traveled together. This was the very first stay Arnavaz had with the women mandali on Meherazad Hill. With all her teaching, and she wasn't particularly, it was very stressful teaching the older students, and she became very ill. She was mentally and emotionally drained. She developed a very high fever, so they moved her to a hospital that was located just below her apartment, run by Dr. Alu Kambata, who many of us remember. And Alu Kambata ended up becoming a lover of Meher Baba. Because of her illness, which left her in a weakened condition, the doctors suggested she leave Bombay and go to Panchgani. She was thrilled, since at the time Meher Baba was in Panchgani. Goher had a summer vacation from college. At this time, Dr. Goher was in medical school and living with Arnavas's family. So Baba told Dr. Goher to come with Arnavas. Since there were two young women, and at the time it would be better for them to have a chaperone, Naraman's brother Behram accompanied them. As Arnavas was leaving Panchgani, Baba said, whenever you get holidays from your teaching, you must come and join me wherever I am. So from then on, Arnavas began staying in the ashram whenever Baba called her. That meant with her teaching job, a full month in October, 2 weeks in December, and 2 weeks in the summer. Because it was was a stressful teaching position, Baba suggested that, or said that she should take Montessori training. So next she became a Montessori teacher, teaching 4 and 5-year-olds. She enjoyed this immensely. And she was given a very special gift of being able to write to Baba weekly. His replies held with him, she wrote, the answers to my heart's questions. Since Naraman left for England in 1937, they continued to correspond. Even though he had 2 years to remain in Europe and he was going to be studying in Germany, Baba said to come back immediately. 2 months later, Germany invaded Poland. Arnavaz joined the Blue Bus tours for a time in 1939 when Baba wasn't traveling. Elsewhere, he came to Bombay and stayed in their new apartment. He told her parents never to move. So I assume that this is the house that many of us actually stayed in, where we would focus on the bed that Baba slept in. He didn't return to Bombay until 1947. But during her April 1940 school holidays, she joined the Blue Bus tours again. One time, Baba called her to Bangalore for a private conversation. Now, he would use gestures most in communication, but this time he didn't use gestures, he used the alphabet board. I presume he wanted to be very specific. He said to Arnavas, would you like to marry? She said no. She only wanted to be with Baba. Baba said, if I tell you to marry, will you obey? She said yes. Will you marry the man I want you to marry? She said yes. Naraman, she said yes. Because of her health, she left teaching and got a job in a veterinary hospital looking after birds and dogs for 1 year. She left in January 42 when Baba called her to travel with him and the men and women mandali to Dehradun. Then the war was going on near the end of March. Baba asked Arnavaz, and of course she was actually helping to support her family with these jobs, to take a nurse's training course that was related to the ongoing war so that she would be able to help with the war effort. While waiting to be called for duty, she helped Chanji. Chanji was writing a biography of Baba in Gujarati, and she helped with some of the recopying. During this time, she was seeing Nariman, who had returned and established his own business, which was called American Color and Chemical Company. Nariman wrote to Baba asking permission to marry Arnavaz. Baba fixed the date of their engagement and gestured he would put the rings on their fingers. Later, Arnavaz realized how Baba had blessed them to love and serve him through marriage. Margaret Krask was the one who helped Arnavaz dress and help with her makeup for their engagement party. Margaret Krask again was the one who helped Arnavaz dress and helped her with her makeup for their wedding. The wedding was held on December 21st, 1944. As a wedding gift, Arnavaz received the first photo of Mera ever given to anyone as a wedding gift. She seemed to get a lot of firsts. Baba told them to find their own apartment. This was very difficult in 1945 because of the war. One day, a friend of Nariman's brought him to see an apartment. It had been owned by a Maharaja for his English jockey who only came 4 months out of the year. The apartment was beautifully, tastefully, and fully furnished. Ashiana means nest. That was the name of their apartment. They had many guests. Margaret was the first guest to stay there while she waited for her boat right after the war. Baba came often and stayed. He brought Mera and the women, had private interviews, gave darshans once to around 2,000 people. On August 15th, 1949, Baba declared his plans for the new life. They were devastated, Arnavas and Nariman. The thought of never seeing Baba again was unbearable. Since Baba did not want any property to remain in his name, at that time, that's when Meherazad was transferred to Nariman's name. Along with the transfer document, Baba gave Nariman the silver locket and key from the opening of the bungalow. During the new life, Naja and Katie went to live at Ashiana with Arnavas and Nariman. When Baba and those on the new life came to Bombay, Baba allowed Arnavas and Nariman to bring food for them. In 1951, Arnavas and Nariman decided to go to Europe and see places Baba had visited because they weren't able to see him on the new life. So what happened was that Baba actually called them, and so they shortened their trip and hurried back. In 1952, Baba made plans to travel to the US. Before he left, he stayed at Ashiana and some other places also prior to the flight. She remembers vividly their return after the accident. She cradled Mera in her arms. The 50s was a time of much activity for Arnavas and Nariman. Baba would tell them not to, he came, and of course there were major darshans, but he also said, don't tell people on certain trips that I'm here. And one time she had to tell her sister-in-law who asked that no, Baba hadn't come, while the brother-in-law had actually with his own eyes seen Baba in the car by their house. So Arnavas was also the first person to receive a letter from Mera. It was the first time Baba allowed Mera to write a letter. Baba gave Arnavas a copy of God Speaks with his own hands. She immediately wrote on the inside page, "This God Speaks is given by beloved Baba." Baba once said that he and Mera were their children. Arnavas always held that very close to her heart. In a strictly confidential letter dated 10th January 1961, Baba requested if Mera survives him, Arnavas most of the time was to stay with Mera and now and again pay visits to Nariman. Nariman can come and again pay visits to you. 5 months after Nariman completed the sale of his business, although they kept Ashiana and periodically spent time in Bombay, they lived at Meherazad most of the time from then on. Along with Dr. Goher, she assumed responsibility for the running of Meherazad since there were no Baba lovers to help and very few servants at that time. Baba once said that he and Mera were their children. Arnavaz held that very close to her heart. In 1965, Meher Baba sent a birthday telegram to Arnavaz, which I think sums up a lot. My love and blessing to you, who are one of the brightest jewels in my divine treasury. Give my love to dear Nariman, who holds this jewel to his heart in trust for me, Meher Baba. And of course, we all remember Arnavas, who answered all of our questions about marriage, sex, family, living in the world while trying to obey and please Baba. So I want to thank you for coming and listening and open it up to the next person who wanted to share, and that's Louise Berry.
Thank you. Louise, are you ready? Just unmute. There you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thanks.
Okay. So I'm thinking about what I would say. I remembered that I had written a little article in the Love Street Lamppost. This was after Arnavaz died. And so I think I'll just read this and then I'll add, a couple of more things. So for 2 years in a row, 2007 and 2008, I had the good fortune to spend a month with Arnavaz as a caregiver. I was there from 8:30 a.m. to 8 p.m. with a midday break. When I would first arrive in her room, she would be dressed, teeth brushed, but she would be dozing, having gone back to sleep. When the bell rang for Arti, I would gently wake her, and she would immediately put her hands together for Arti. She faced a beautiful photo of Baba on the wall. I faced Baba's room where the women were saying Arti. After the prayers, I handed her a photo of Baba kept at her bedside. It was a photo of Baba, and also in the frame there was a picture of Mera. And she would put this photo close to her heart, and she would hold it there sometimes for a long time. Then she would greet me so lovingly. We would inquire of each other how we had slept. One day I said to her, "Every day I ask you how you've slept. You always say you've slept well, no matter what." She said, "It's better to be positive." Then we would go through the day. She would take her meals on the veranda just outside her bedroom door. I would have tea and chapatis with her, and we would chat. She especially loved the garden during the monsoon. For me, it was unquestionably paradise. The atmosphere in Meherazad vibrated with the human side of Baba's divinity. It vibrated with love. Many times she said to me, "Repeat his name so that it becomes like breathing." One day I asked about her doing it. She said, "It happens automatically for me now." Oh, I was taking his name. In her last days, I heard that sometimes when she would come out of a light coma, she would be saying his name. At one point, she told me that Baba had said, "Leave tomorrow in my hands," and also endure what cannot be endured. Arnavaz said to me many times, just accept what he gives and deal with it, with the emphasis on deal with it. Whatever comes your way, say, okay, Baba, okay, whatever you want, okay. Arnavaz said, I said, so that's your mantra, okay, Baba? She said, yes. We have to pass through everything. Life is always up and down. Just go through the day, one thing at a time. One day I said to her, you remind me of Baba in the way that you are so loving to the pilgrims when they come. And I know sometimes you don't feel well. But when they come, you're so loving and welcoming. You make them feel good. Arnavaz said, it's my duty to do this. And then she got very soft and she said, thank you. Thank you. In being with Arnavaz, Baba has shown me what surrenderance looks like and also love. Surrenderance in the way she went through her life, through her day, and love in the way she treated others. So just a couple of things. I remember earlier on when, we were all much younger and talking to her. I remember I was talking to her about wanting to buy a house and all the problems I was having with that. And she said, if Baba wants you to rent, you'll rent. And if Baba wants you to buy, you'll buy. And that was that. And the other thing in that conversation, she said, go ask Baba. Ask Baba for anything you want. Do it. She said, for example, what if you see a diamond ring in a store and you really want that ring? So you say to Baba, Baba, I saw a diamond ring in that store and I would really like to have that ring. She said, it's okay to say that. Ask Baba for that. She said, but then you always have to say, whatever you want, Baba, whatever you want. And let's see. One time, Katie came in the room. She was using a walker at the time. And she came in the room and sat down, and she and Arnavas were talking to each other, I guess in Marathi or Gujarati, I don't know, it was some language that I didn't speak. And they were talking to each other for, I don't know, a long time, about 45 minutes. And then Katie got up to leave and she was walking out the door and she was standing just at the door and she turned to me. There were two twin beds in the room with Arnavaz, and Arnavaz would be on one and I would hang out on the other. And Katie turned to me and she said, I wrote this down, so I'm going to read it. She said, when we were young, we used to run to Baba. We used to gallop to Baba. We were stallions. She said, now we crawl. And let's see. Well, I guess I'll close with that. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. That was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Havovi, are you there? Would you like to share something? I know it's late. Havovi?
Is the oven on? Or did you check the...
Are you there, Havovi?
She is. She's not unmuted.
Yeah, I know. I'm asking. Well, I guess I'm not sure if she's able to come right now.
She's
So,
there, but
yeah.
she's muted and she's talking to us.
Oh, okay. Havovi, could you unmute, please?
Unmuted. Is that good?
Yes, there you
Can you-
are. Jay Baba, thank you.
She muted again.
You're muted again, Havovi. Can you unmute, darling?
She's still muted.
Yeah, I know. Thank you. Havovi? Can you hit the unmute, dear? Thought I heard.
Okay, is that any better? I've unmuted.
Perfect. Yes, thank you.
Okay, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Everyone? Yes, I'll start. First of all, it's an honor to be speaking about my wonderful sister-in-law, who was almost a mother figure to us, Hoshang and me. And the first time, am I audible, everybody? Yeah? Hello? Hello? Are you hearing me?
Yes, you sound very good.
Okay, all right. So the first time that Arnavaz invited me, I was a 17-year-old and engaged to my husband, husband to be, my fiance. And Arnavaz said I should be taken to Ashiana to be introduced to Meher Baba. And Meher Baba was there giving darshan. And I was taken to him by Nariman. And Nariman said, well, this is Hoshang's fiance, Meher Baba. And Baba, sort of patted me and gave me a very sweet, very good, like this. But that time, for 7 long years, believe it or not, I was a disbeliever. So I said, but I don't think you are this. But my Arnavaz, who was always so protective and so wonderful to us, she said, she was standing at the doorway and she said, I knew one day you would be his, So that was like, and then 7 years later, in 1966, June 1960, I started following Baba. So Arnavaz was the one instrumental in telling me, don't worry, you'll come to it eventually. And once in the Mandli Hall in Guru Prasad, and then was very sweet sister-in-law of mine who's now with Baba, Preni. So he said, Preni and Havovi didn't love me. Now they love me a lot. So I was very happy with that. Okay. Then in 1954, Arnavaz always gave me a lot of opportunities to be around the Mandli. So in 1954, Nariman and Arnavaz gave us an opportunity. The Westerners had come for that great darshan. So the bus was going to Meherazad, and at the Wadia for the Wadia Park darshan. And so we accompanied them in that big bus. And, to make small talk, I spoke to everyone and everybody said they'd seen Baba in their dreams and they were all Baba, Baba, Baba. But anyway, we got this golden opportunity to go. So that also Arnavaz and Nariman provided for that. All right. And then I'll go on to a lot of other stories. Okay. When I was sick with a tonsillitis operation and I almost went to Baba. This was when I was about 26, soon after my daughter Meheruk was born. I had a very bad hemorrhage, and Baba, and she took me after the hospital. She took me to a beautiful Ashiana home to recuperate. A lot of our possessions, and Arnavaz would be so very sweet and loving. And by the way, I forgot to tell you, at the Wadia Park Darshan, she took me during the lunch break. She took me to meet Mera, Mani, Mansari, all of them there. And because I was unaware of what the Mandli was, and had no idea at all, and I wasn't even interested, unfortunately, at the time. So she introduced me to them, and I saw them oozing love, Mera, Mani, Kaveh, all of them, so much love, and behind sand, behind that hedge, I didn't know what to make of it, but she was the one who took me, and they were all love, love, love. So that was another nice thing she did for me. Then during, when my son was born, I was a disbeliever, Rayoman. In fact, he's a lucky boy who took the last picture of Meher Baba on his Navjot day on 22nd December. Anyway, so at the time I was a disbeliever, so we said, son is born to Rayovan, and daughter is born to Meherazad. So our son was born in 1958 December, so we named him Rayovan. But Baba had the last laugh because from the 101 attributes of God, the 96th one is Rayovan, which is haloed in his life. So finally, I did name him after Baba in a different way, not Nirvan or anything, but Mehernosh or things like that. All right. After that, when Meru was to be born in 60, I became a Baba. 1960, I became a Baba lover. So Arnavaz so sweetly said, since you liked Rukshana for the girl, why don't we name her Meru? So she's like, she's a godmother, and still today, I mean, always there was a very, very close bond between both my children, but also with Meru. So she said, coined the name Meher Ruk with a double R in the middle. So that was another gift she gave us to my family. And of course, I said, in Ashiana. Okay, then this very sweet story about a black clock which is still in Mehruk's room. Arnavaz once gave me that she used to give me a lot of street Baba presents, you know. So one of them was a big, very differently shaped clock, black clock. And she said, Prabhuji, I'm giving it to you. I had originally bought it for Mera, but Mera somehow didn't want it because it's black. And Baba liked it. He patted it. He said, see, so nice. So that I didn't want to give it back to the shop. So I'm giving it to you. So till today, it adorns our wall, the black clock, you know. Okay, then that's it. And then, hold on. But she always gave me opportunity to do things for the monthly, you know, little things like she needed anything from Bombay when she was staying in Meherazad. She would say, oh, we get this. So that was a golden opportunity she gave. And all our happy birthday gifts were Baba books. She would always present us with Baba books, you know, and always ready with good advice. And I don't know, she brought us so close to Baba. Thanks to her, we are where we are today, you know. And okay, then what else do I say? Lots of things to be told. Okay. Oh. Okay, I told you about the tonsillitis, about staying at Meherazad, and every time it was wonderful to have her. And the minute we come to Meherazad, after the Manli Hall, we'd go to Mehra and all. After that, we'd come down and at the time when Anu was not well, we called her Anu. You know, Arnavaz, gift of God, was Anu for us. And we'd come and she'd be so nice. She held us in our business. My husband confessed she was a very, very wise woman, you know. And in fact, our accountant said she's such a wise person. Arnavaz would take interest in everything. And she was a mentor for us, and a wonderful, wonderful person whom we miss and love a lot. Jai Baba. I won't keep too much of your time because there's so many other people waiting in the wings to speak. Thank you, Karen, for giving me the opportunity. Baba bless. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Thank you so much. Beautiful. Beautiful. Alicia, did you want to share something? I know you had your hand. Are you there? Alicia?
Yes, I'm here.
Alicia.
Alisa. Yeah.
Alicia.
Alisa.
My friend.
Hi, Havovi. I miss
Hi,
you.
Alicia. Mother talking.
Yeah, my spiritual mummy.
Yeah.
I wanted to just have a few minutes to share just because I have a class I have to jump off and get onto in a little bit. I'm so glad this is recorded because I want to hear all of it. But I just wanted to say, just Arnavaz was, I know I was trying to gather my thoughts about what I want to say about Arnavaz. She just colored so much of my experience in all my years of going to India, you know, from when I started going when I was in my mid 20s, but all through my years of my marriage to Robert. She was, like Havovi said, she was a mentor and a counselor to all of us. And because I am a therapist in my own life, I felt like she was particularly a mentor to me because she just embodied such, I mean, the thing I could say about Arnavaz is she embodied such grace and equipoise and dignity in loving Baba. You know, it was just like she was such a role model to me and just how to be in the world as a woman, as a counselor. She truly was a mentor. And she just, I don't know what, we had such a sweet connection. And I felt like she always really saw me, you know, like when I was going through my struggles in my marriage. I didn't talk much about it in India just because I felt, you know, Robert was so beloved there. And I really just never wanted to, you know, to bring those forward. But Arnavaz would always, like, it was like she just knew, because and she would call me all the time to talk to her on the porch, and she helped me so much in just being strong and accepting Baba's will and really understanding, because see, she knew Robert, because Robert, I remember her one time saying to me, and I could say this now because Robert would be okay, but she said to me, you know, she said, I remember when Robert knocked on my door after he met Baba. She said, and I opened that door and I saw this young man, and she said, he had a bag of problems. And she was just so understanding of the struggles that I had in my relationship with Robert. And it was such a great comfort to me. But she encouraged me strongly to really stay with it and to accept Baba's will, and, you know, and just to see what Baba would bring. And the things that I remember her always saying were, you know, just that, yeah, not a leaf turns without his wish and will. Over and over, she would say that. And when I had the opportunity, like Louise, to go take care of Arnavaz in 2007, I was actually the first to come. And I spent 6 weeks there and living at Meherazad, and it was such an amazing experience. But I just remember that sitting with her every morning, having tea on the porch for breakfast, and just watching the leaves, you know, blowing, and just that somehow that memory is really vivid to me, of just not a leaf turns without his wish and will. And I remember her also saying many times, like Louise shared, you know, just to take Baba's name. But she said often to me that time that, you know, no matter what life presents to you, she said, you must go through it. She said, you will have to go through it. She said, and the only choice we have is either we go through it with grace, or we go through it kicking and screaming. Those are the only choices, she said, but you will go through it. And I remember that so well, because whenever I'm faced with a difficulty in my life, I think of what Arnavaz said, and it's just like, okay, I can go through this kicking and screaming, but that's not going to stop me from going through it. So I may as well muster up as much courage and grace as I can. And I just think of her beauty and her grace. So and the thing was, Arnavaz died on my birthday. My birthday is February 17th. She died on February 18th. And I remember it was my birthday evening when I heard of her passing. And I had the most beautiful dream of her that night. Because I just felt like somehow, you know, that connection, and I don't remember the details of the dream. I'd have to try to find it in a journal, but I remember just being with Arnavaz, and it was just this beautiful dancing and freedom. And I felt this sadness and pain of losing her, but also the joy of her release. So she's just forever in my heart. So I just want to share this beautiful picture of Arnavas and I. This was in 1996, and just how beautiful she was. So thank you so much.
Jay Baba, thank you so much. That was beautiful. Her essence is just pouring out. It's so beautiful. It's making tears go down my face. Evie, did you want to share something?
I'd love to. Jay Baba, to all my old friends on this call, I feel so happy just to see your smiling faces today. And just to know that we're all on this call because we were deeply impacted by Arnavas. I can feel the tears in my throat. I'm going to do, I think, what Louise did. So I wrote a piece for the Love Street lamppost after Arnavas's death. And I remember I was living on campus at Yale at the time, and I received a call in the middle of the night from Pat Sumner to tell me that Arnavas had died. And, you know, as I look back and I remember her at this phase of my life, I really feel like she's very present in my heart. And sometimes when I feel stuck, I can just hear her beautiful voice telling me just to give it all to Baba. So I'm going to read this and then I'm just going to add a couple of comments. Although I cannot do justice to Arnavas in a few paragraphs, still I will try. I first met Arnavas and her husband Nariman at Meherazad in January 1971. I felt comfortable with her immediately, and we began having chats on the porch. In the coming years, when I returned to India, we continued our chats. These conversations were always focused on Baba and how to understand myself and my relationships from a spiritual perspective. I was also really fortunate to work with Arnavas on her autobiography, Gift of God, which began with tapes that Dara Irani recorded of Arnavas's life stories. I took these tapes back to the US, had them transcribed, and several hundred pages later, spent a good part of one hot summer working with her at Meherazad and at Ashiana, the flat in Mumbai owned by Arnavas and Nariman. Ashiana developed a life of its own through their one-pointed devotion to Baba and his frequent visits there, which are narrated by Arnavas in her book. It is to Arnavas that I owe everything I have learned about applying Baba's teachings to the art of living. However, whenever I thanked her, she would look at Baba's photo and tell me, he does everything. She embodied a kind of love and feminine understanding that I very much needed, delivered over time with exquisite care and sensitivity. In December 2007, I returned to India to stay at Meherazad and help with her medical needs. I think of the word help rather loosely because although she was in bed much of the time, I felt that the opportunity to do a few things for her was helping me. It also required me to adjust my view of Arnavas now that she was more elderly and unwell. I had always seen her as marvelously in command of herself, even when she had physical problems. In spite of the changes in her, I continued to notice moments when her lucid frame of mind leapt out to alert me when I did something uncaring or impatient. Her focus was sharp, and she noticed everything. Although there were only 2 incidents of this type, the lessons have informed my behavior ever since. One of them actually involved an incident very early in the morning, and she kept slippers by her bedside. And part of my work was to help her sit up in bed and put her feet on the floor and then get her slippers on her. And for whatever reason going on with me, I felt myself kind of in a hurry to get those slippers on her feet that day. And she looked at me, and often when Arnavas would comment on something that maybe was awkward or ungainly in one's character, you didn't need to answer her. You just had to sit with the silence. And so she just looked at me and she said, "Why are you so impatient?" And it just struck me immediately. And I was silent. And after that, I began trying to put her slippers on again with a little more grace and kind of appropriately chastised. And I thought, you know, that's what we do in the West. We're so accustomed to making our lists and getting things done every single day that we forget that we're in a beautiful space where we can just open our hearts. And I still am troubled sometimes by my impatience, but I always think back to that question she asked me. And it was not a question that required an answer. It was just a question that needed to be really lived into. So in the evenings before bed, we watched videos of old films. She was a fan of Singing in the Rain, Carousel, and An American in Paris. Musicals and fine dancing won her over. We also viewed Life as a House and Doctor. The evening always ended with the master's prayer and the Gujarati arti, which I somehow had learned to sing, but not with much confidence. After hugs all around and a massage of her feet and hands, she went to sleep. In the mornings, our routine began again. On several occasions, we ventured into the arena of resistance, control, and loneliness. She told me that it is a basic human weakness to want to control. But at the same time, there is a great deal of sorrow on the path because so much must be relinquished. I told her that I often felt lonely. I continued, does it have to be lonely? Arnavaz, yes. Me, why? Arnavaz, how else can he draw us to him? She also told me, when we were discussing psychotherapy on one occasion, which is my profession, that it can help, psychotherapy can actually help to unwind sanskaras. Her comment made me wide-eyed with curiosity and interest. Having been a psychotherapist for many years, I felt a sense of wonder that this could be true. I've always considered Arnavaz to be the one Mandali who had a deep understanding of marital relationships. This perspective gave me a renewed appreciation for the inherent value in my professional practice. On the last morning before my departure for the US, I wondered if I would ever see her again. She replied, only Baba knows. Her farewell to me was tender. She spoke words to me that I had never heard from her before, words and feelings conveyed in such a way that they continue to energize and connect me with Baba when I feel at a loss. If I had to summarize what Arnavas embodied and helped me to understand, it would be this: life is lived in moments. Pay attention. For example, she always noticed what I wore, especially bright colors and jewelry. When I realized that this brought her some kind of happiness, I made a point of dressing in a way that would please her. My take-home message was to realize that although my appearance is not central to my identity, it brought color and joy into her life and lifted her spirits, and therefore it mattered. Arnavas read widely and once gave me a copy of M. Esther Harding's The Way of All Women. So this was an interesting gift to me because it wasn't until many years later that I became deeply immersed in studying Jungian psychology, and there it was on her bookshelf. She told me too, by the way, that because Baba sat on the divan at Ashiana where her books were, he often touched this book. After I returned from India, I reread the book. It reminded me that feminine psychology has its own rhythms and cadences, and the journey is about our willingness to venture into unknown territory, embrace the unknown and the dark, and return with fewer burdens, more clarity, and a greater capacity to love Baba. Baba was right about the meaning of her name and how she lived it. She truly was a gift of God. So just a couple more things about how personal Arnavas's relationships were, I think, with many of us on this call. We exchanged many letters over the years, and I once stayed in India for 6 months and worked with Dr. Goher in the clinic, so I had many, many opportunities to be with her. And in the interim, with many ups and downs in my personal life, I would write her letters and she would write me back. And I treasure those letters now. And there were 2 things about those letters. One was that it was Arnavaz who taught me, when you come to Baba, it is no longer enough when you address a letter to somebody else who loves Baba to say dear. You must say dearest. A second thing about her letters was when she didn't hear from me for a while, I would hear from her and she would inquire, are you all right? Tell me what's going on. I would love to hear back from you. And that deep sense of caring that would prompt her to write to me in the middle of everything else she was doing and the struggles that she had with her physical health was, I think, just another sign of her deep love. finally, I think what I would say is it was Arnavas's inner attunement to Baba that most of us resonated with. And I want to read a very short thing, which is part of a dream that Arnavas had after Baba dropped the body. And this is that inner attunement that I think we're all searching for, really. So she says, during this time after Baba dropped the body, from which I had a dream from which I awoke, overcome with emotion. In the dream, I was standing in a doorway watching Baba and Mera. She was coming down a staircase, walking toward Baba, who entered through another door. He extended his hand, saying, "Come, Mera, and we will do the prayers." Because Baba was no longer in the body, Mera hesitated, as if wondering how she could touch him. Baba extended his hands toward hers until their fingertips were touching, and her whole countenance suddenly changed. I could see Baba pouring a transparent liquid from his hands into Mera's. From the expression on her face, it was clear that her whole being was undergoing a transformation, that something mystical was taking place. And so I think my final thought for today is through those incredibly deep connections with all of the Mandali, and particularly today as we remember Arnavas, I think her gift was to remind us that we are all undergoing a transformation. And we are all so blessed to have Baba caring for us and to have had our cherished memories of Arnavas in our hearts. That I think it's something very slow, and it's something that we often don't know. And particularly in the middle of a struggle, it's very hard to remember that I should do what Arnavas says, which in her loving voice I can still hear. Give it all to Baba, darling. Jai Baba.
Hey, Baba, I love your third eye today.
Oh, isn't it good? Yes, my Valentine heart. That was a little testimony to Arnavas and how she loved bright colors. I thought, this is the day of the heart. We should remember.
So
Thank you.
thank you. Yeah, would you mind putting that name? Could you type that book and the author into the chat?
Yes, I'd be happy to.
The Way of All Women.
The Way of All Women.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks so much, Evie. That was so beautiful.
Oh, thank you, Ruth.
Jai Baba. Well, Mahu, you have your hand up, so I'm going to go ahead and ask you if you'd like to share.
Okay, so first I'm unmuting before I forget. Thank you for allowing me to talk, and my talk is very spontaneous. Up to 20 minutes before, I didn't even know I'm going to be sharing, but every time I participate in these gatherings, I get so inspired by Baba's love that it comes to me, the inspiration comes to me. And Eva was so wonderfully written, all her account with Arnavaz. Arnavaz for me is not gone, actually. She has had a very active role in my life. And she has touched as a woman with her full feminine character. She has touched my feminine side so deeply and so lovingly. As soon as I came to Baba, which was mid-90s, Baba connected me with Arnavaz because I was so much on fire. I would go to India almost every year. And so she came to my rescue. My interaction with Arnavaz is she came to my rescue and helped me at the very important junctions of my life. And, you know, incidents that nobody else could help me so vividly and lively, and she did. First of all, the first thing I can think of is when James Cox was making all those condos, building condos, and you know, it was very, very attractive, right? 3-bedroom, 2-bedroom condo. He was giving us tour and so forth. So I was very tempted to buy one, and so one day that I went to Meherazad, I shared it with Arnavaz. First of all, Arnavaz during the Meherazad visits was so generously making herself available to all pilgrims, including me. She would sit in front on that porch in front of her room, waiting to receive people with so open arm and open heart. So I immediately felt like Baba wants me to share that with her. And she said, she helped me. She said, you know, Mahu, I wouldn't rush really into this. If you want to move to Meherabad, which I really wanted at that time, nothing in my life mattered but moving to Meherabad and living there. If Baba wants you to move to Meherabad, he will find a way for you to live here. Just don't rush into this. And I said, okay, I will, like that. And the second thing, so I didn't move on, I didn't make any move on that. So the second thing is my husband was not a Baba lover. Still he isn't. He believes in not impersonified side of God, not a personified, but it's a very good Zoroastrian man. And but it used to bother me so much. Every time I would go there, I take this 4-year-old son with me, 5-year-old, and then he became 6, he became 7, and would just go there, and people would say, "Oh, where's your husband? So where's your husband?" And I said, well, he's not coming. He's not. So one day I opened my heart and I started crying, on one of those visits. And I talked to Arnavaz, I said, Arnavaz, I don't know what to do, I mean, the best event of my life is Baba, he's everything. And you can't share it with your family. So what to do? And you have no idea. The expression on her face changed. She came in full conviction, full of love. And she said, what do you care, Mahu? Just like that. What do you care, Mahu? Because he belongs to Baba. You have nothing to do with that. If Baba wants that to happen, he turns the key. So you stay out of it and leave it to Baba. And that put a very nice cover on my agony. All that self-thoughts, thought can drive you crazy. And that was it. I surrendered to Baba. I said, okay, Baba. Even I talked to other Mandalis before, but she was the one who knew how to get into you. And I was, because I loved her, I would just listen to her. And that was it. Ever since then, the problem resolved. It doesn't matter anymore. It's Baba, it's his problem and his business, right? So another thing was about my son. So I was taking, and I have such beautiful pictures with Arnavaz. I can't show it today. And we took pictures with her and so forth. And she said something about my son that up to this day, I am using it and it has helped us so much. She told me, he was trying to cling into me and didn't give me enough free time to talk to Arnavaz and share my heart and so forth. And she told me, Mahu, you've got to teach him a discipline, because discipline is something that sustains him in the world. That's exactly the word. Discipline sustains him. And up to this day, I'm trying and I'm using this as a jewel to help my son to develop enough self-discipline so he can sustain himself in this crazy world. More than anything, I've always felt Arnavas's love for Baba was so touching, so deep, so, you know, all the letters that she wrote to Baba, I feel like running to you, Baba. When can I come? I feel like running to you anytime, you know, like that. So beautiful. Of course, that book is out of print now. Only 500 was published by Nashwan, and hopefully it will be reprinted. But Arnavaz was definitely gift of God to me, and I'm sure many others. And toward the end, when she was staying in bed, I didn't have a chance to go take care of her, but two of my friends did for 3 months because they were asking for help. And they had extraordinary experience with her. I don't want to discuss it. But one time that toward the end, when I went and she was sleeping in her bed, I saw this pure halo and a white cloud around her, and she appeared to me just like an angel. You know, Baba brought that image to me, and she was an angel. Yeah, Jai Baba. Good to know Arnavaz always. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. That was beautiful. Thank you so much, Mahu. Well, I have 3 of Baba's ladies here, and I think what I'm going to do is just kind of go alphabetically because I don't know what else to do. So I'm going to go with Barbara first, Katzenberg, if she'd like to share something. Barbara? You're still muted, darling. Somehow.
Okay, now I'm not.
Great. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Well, I was blessed by Baba to be able to be with Arnavas as her caregiver. I feel like she was really my caregiver, but I got to be in India for 2 different occasions, one in 2008 for about 6 weeks, which was really such a gift to me. And then again, a year later, and it ended up that I was with her when she passed, which was just so amazing. I wanted to share a vignette that happened around her passing, just because it happened and it's good to know. And then I wanted to share a little bit about the meaning of being with her in my life. So this is a vignette that happened, and just a preamble to that is when Arnavaz was younger, her mother became involved and connected with someone who was involved in occultism, and he would periodically visit their house. Arnavaz became very upset with this man, and I think she went to Baba and asked him about this man, and later Baba was able to free her from his effects on her. Now this information figures prominently in the timing of her passing. So it was about a half an hour before she went to Baba. She went to Baba at about 2:30 in the afternoon, and at about 1:30 in the afternoon on that day, which was February 18th, Falu came into the room where we were to say that a man from Chapel Hill had come to see Bao and was here for the first time. And he really wanted to see Arnavas, having just read her book. Falu said he could come for just 2 minutes. So this man said he was a doctor and wanted to examine Arnavas. Falu said she was under a doctor's care already and needed no more examining, but to come for a short time and then leave. So, you know, this was a time when she was about to pass and there were no visitors. So it was very unusual that he was allowed to come. he came with a woman who was either his girlfriend or wife. I wasn't sure. And Camilla and I were alone with Arnavaz in her room, and Camilla had told this man he could sit on the stool, which was close to Arnavaz's bed and by her head. She was turned on her left side facing him. His lady friend said something about this being the work that he does for people. She sat near the door with her palms open as if in meditation on the stool near the door. This was the girlfriend. The man began making hand mudras, which, you know, a mudra are different like sort of poses in yoga that one goes through with their hands. He stayed almost 10 minutes, said nothing while doing these hand mudras. Shelley came in the middle and told him that he would need to leave in a few minutes. And so about 15 minutes after he left at 2:15, that was 15 minutes, Arnavaz began to transition. And then about 15 minutes later, she passed. So I just wanted to note that this strange thing had happened with this man who seemed to be in the occult. And it seems somehow connected to that early part of Arnavas's life with the man who was coming to their house often. I don't know if it was a reincarnation of that man or what, but it was very similar. And so maybe she had a connection with him, and it definitely was the last visitor that she confronted before she passed. So I wanted to say that. It was interesting. So now I want to talk just a little bit about my experience of being there. Years before, Arnavaz had said to me, she had quoted this little rhyme, and I noted it down. And I asked her again when I came back to be with her the last year or so before she passed, if it was true. And she said, yes, it is true. And this is what she had told me. The path of sorrow, and that path alone, leads to the place where sorrow is unknown. And my father had died when I was a little girl, and it was very traumatic and very sad. So I'm not sure if I had told her about that, but it made a profound impact to hear that little rhyme and to feel that there was hope when having to endure such sorrow. And the interesting thing is, Arnavaz died on February 18th, which turned out it was the same day my father had died many, many years before, which was February 17th in America, which was the 18th in India. So it was just so interesting that Baba had me be there. And instead of being a sorrowful time of her passing, it was such a joyous time. And she had also told me not to be sad when she passed. And I didn't really feel sadness having to witness all of the beautiful things that encompassed her passing and the cremation and the celebration of her life. It was a joyous time, and I'm just so grateful to Baba that he gave me that time and to help me in my healing also. So, Jai Baba.
Jay Baba. Barbara, that was beautiful. If you had the inclination, you could type that little thing into the chat, people could copy.
Okay.
Yeah.
The whole thing, or just what?
The little couplet of the little poem about sorrow.
Okay.
Yeah, that was gorgeous. That helps me. Thank you, Jay Baba, Barbara.
Jai Baba.
And let's see, ABC would be Kathy Riley. Are you there, Kath? There you are.
Thank
Jai
you,
Baba.
Jai Baba. Wow, this is so. Thank you for doing this Wonderful, wonderful. Oh, golly, where to start? It is interesting. Just, I wasn't going to mention one of the many lessons that that Arnavaz gave me, but definitely she was very strong about what Barbara was just talking about the occult and staying away from the occult. That was especially kind of important to me because I came to Baba with my friend Annie through events that had to do with the occult. And as soon as we got to Myrtle Beach and Kitty and Elizabeth sort of set us straight, Arnavaz reinforced that theme of staying away from the occult. So that has really had a profound influence in my life in different ways. Another very powerful lesson I felt I got from her wonderful book, Gift of God, was the importance of obedience. I think that's almost one of the themes of the Gift of God book, and obedience above love, greater than love. That has been very important. And the story I'd like to share today has to do with a visit to India in which she pulled me aside and, eventually got out of me what was the latest problem that needed fixing. And I had had a traumatic event a few months before in which I was studying at Georgia State and had a professor who took a dislike to me, made my life miserable. And long story short, I actually quit and threw in the towel and went to India. And I was sort of tail between my legs, sort of moping about. And Arnavas brought me to the porch and sat me down and got the whole story out of me. And then she looked at me with love and strength and said, this woman has tortured you, for quite a while. And, but you know what Baba says about that? That was something you had to go through, and you should really thank her. And I just looked totally shocked because I had, really couldn't stand this woman. I really had come to hate this woman, and I was thinking, oh my God, so glad I'm away from her. And she said, something Baba was doing that you really needed to go through, and she was maybe taking something upon herself. And so I want you to go back and thank your professor. And I just sat there and I went, oh my God, OMG, how can I do that? But, I got back to America and I decided I really had to do this. It was like I had an assignment. So I sort of gathered my strength, and as I was leaving the whole Georgia State experience, I had to go finalize some things at the music department office. I knew when this professor would be coming into the office, and I took Baba's name, thought of Arnavas, walked in as I saw this professor go to her box, and she turned around and I went up to her, inwardly, Arnavas, Mayor Baba, I'm going to do it. And I said, thank you so much for all you've given me. And, her mouth dropped open because she knew what she had been doing to me. And then I just didn't even say anything else, didn't even hardly look at her, and turned around and walked out. And I just felt such relief, and the whole angst of it just fell away. And that has been a great life lesson, that sometimes people or situations in which you are so beset are the gifts that he's giving you. And I feel like that's been one of the many blessings that Arnavas gave me, is knowing that. And as I'm in the middle of something that's very traumatic, inwardly or outwardly, I'm knowing that Baba's giving it to me for my benefit, even though at the time I can't see it. So, Jai Baba.
Beautiful.
Thank you, Arnavas. Thank you for that.
So beautiful, Kathy. Thank you so much.
Mhm, mhm,
What a lesson. That's, yeah.
mhm.
Yeah. Dana, you're the next one alphabetically here.
Okay. Well, that ties in beautifully to what comes to mind when I think of Arnavaz.
Mhm.
Several things come to mind. First of all, when I think of her eyes and the incredible depth and stillness that was conveyed by her look. Can you hear me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Mhm.
But the word that comes to mind when I think of Arnavaz is acceptance.
Mhm.
She had to accept a lot, and she was, I think for all of us who had came into contact with her, she was giving that lesson of acceptance. And I'm just remembering one time I was staying at Meherazad for a period of time, different in and out of there. And one of the times I was staying there, she knew I was facing something difficult. And she just looked at me and she said two things. She said, if you have one prayer to Baba, just ask him to give you the strength to go through whatever you have to go through that he wants you to go through on that day. And if you have to go forward and you see there's a great big hole in front of you that you're going to fall into, if there's no way around it, you just have to go through it. You have to go into the hole and out the other side of it. So I've thought about that a lot. The first night I ever spent at Meherazad was actually Arnavaz's birthday, and it was also a full moon night. And there was such a beautiful atmosphere. It was intoxicating. I was totally smitten by the atmosphere, and I felt in it Baba's love for Arnavaz, Arnavaz's love for Baba, of course, but it was a quiet, I don't remember there being an actual celebration. There may have been earlier in the day, but I just remember the feeling of love was so magical. It was such a beautiful atmosphere. I don't know what to say. That it just made me aware of her relationship with Baba in a different way. I found a little note in a diary today. I was wondering what I would remember. And it says, Arnavaz has been telling a few incidents lately during massage, though I probably should be encouraging her to be quiet and rest, but occasional gems do pour forth, and here's one. She explained to me that she was better off than some other people, and so she would often give to others. One day, Baba said to her, enough giving. You give and give and give. It's enough now. Stop. I don't want you to give anymore. So she stopped because she was implicitly obedient to anything Baba asked of her. About 6 years later, a situation came up and he asked her to give again. One feels this started it again. However, she said she realized only then that Baba wanted her to give in a different way, with no expectation of anything from the other person. She gave me an example even before she told me the story. She said to me, suppose you give to another person and then they're nasty to you. Naturally, you feel it. I said you would feel resentful. She said, naturally. Then she explained about this giving with no sense at all that what you're giving is yours. With no sense at all that what you're giving is yours. And then I wrote, this is my own note. This certainly does speak to me now. She said, and of course, I guess I'm making a comment. I know in my mind, all this is Baba's. It is only on loan to us. And if we give with the expectation, we are only loaning, not truly giving. Yeah. I remember also that Baba told her to be a mother to all. She said to be a mother to all. And one time when I was facing a difficulty going back to the West, some major conflict was going on, she said, be a friend to all. Don't take sides. Be a friend to all. I remember the last time I ever saw Arnavaz. I'm trying to think if there's something I left out that I wanted to say. I'm sure that there will be things I left out, but everybody said such beautiful things that probably don't need repeating. But the last time I ever saw Arnavaz, it was a silent communication between us. I knew I would never see her again. And I also knew that I was going back to the West to face some losses, some deaths were in front of me, 2 very significant ones that I knew were coming up. And she knew that too. So it was a incredible, a very charged time, but it felt very soft, very beautiful. It was just a look that would carry me through eternity. We never said goodbye. I knew it was goodbye, and she knew that I had to carry so much love with me back to what I was facing. And I felt like she was imparting this tremendous amount of love to me to take back with me. And also, I also felt like she was quietly thanking me for whatever small service I might have rendered her there. But I don't remember any words passing between us at all. Just remember those gorgeous black eyes, dark brown black eyes, just unfathomably deep look. And whenever I think of Arnavaz, when I really think of her, it's like a stop. It's like a stillness that just comes, because that's, her acceptance was so profound. That thing that Evie said about why are you impatient? She was all patience. She knew what she had to pass through. She knew she had to pass through a tremendous difficulty, and she just accepted it 110%. Anyway, I guess that's it for me for now. Thank you. Thanks for the opportunity to share.
So beautiful, Dana. Thank you so much. Yeah, there's a lot of comments in the chats about that look that you mentioned. Thank you. Cindy, I see you're here. Cindy Lowe, do you want to share something? Cindy? I'm looking. Maybe you're not, I'm just wondering if you wanted to share, Cindy. I don't see you. Are you
Okay.
there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah. Jay Baba.
I'm here. The first, I think I learned from Arnavaz to say yes, or at least to say yes to Baba better than I had. And the way I learned this was by saying no, because years and years ago, I was asked to come to Meherazad to help take care of her. And I said no. And my reason was I thought I would be a pain in the butt for everybody else because I was a terrible sleeper. I knew I'd be sleeping in the same room, and I said no. And then shortly after that, I read her book, and I realized she said yes to everything, like Elizabeth. Yes, Baba dear, except that's not what Arnavaz said, I don't think. But it was that kind of spirit that whatever he asks, even if you feel it's impossible, you just do it. So the next time I was asked to go to Meherazad, I said yes, even though I thought it was impossible. But I did it, and it was possible. And so I'm grateful to her for that. Another thing I remember very clearly is one day I was just feeling like this is way back, probably in the early 70s. I was feeling, or middle, I don't know. I was feeling like a spiritual failure, complete failure. And I told Arnavas about that, you know, how we sat on the small veranda and told her our problems. And I told her about how badly I felt and what a terrible Baba lover I was and all this and that. And she said, oh, but my dear, we've been with Baba for 50 years. So I got this idea in my head, oh, well, once I'm with Baba in 50 years, I'll know as much as they do. Wrong. So it was just so wrong. But the other thing, the my I guess favorite memory of her is this. I would, in her last weeks especially, I would go and sit on her bed and play and sing for her. And her fave song of mine, and one that she played to death at Meherazad, to the point where I don't think anybody ever wants to hear it again, is A Pilgrim's Artie. And she would sing along with me on the choruses anyway. And as she got closer and closer to going to Baba, she got weak, her voice got weaker and weaker. So I remember that last time I was sitting on her bed, there was nobody else there. And I sang it to her. And the last line is, "My heart belongs to you, Meher." And that's all she could manage. But every time I got to that line, she would say, "My heart belongs to you, Meher." And it was so beautiful. And I realized that really this is what performing is. It's like being able to give to somebody like that was like such an honor and a privilege. And anyway, that was the last time I saw her. She died, I don't know, just a couple of days after that, maybe. Anyway, that's my story. I'm sticking to it. Jai Baba, thank you.
Jai Baba, it's a beautiful story. Thank you so much. Alan, I think you wanted to share something.
Oh, I think that having a guy talk occasionally would be okay.
Be great.
Yeah. I don't know how great it's going to be, but it'll be different anyway. The first time I met Arnavaz was in '73 in November. I was hanging out with her nephew, Marwan Mystery, and I got the good fortune of going to lunch at Ashiana. And Nariman was there. It was the only time I met him. I think it was because Kitty was going back to the United States with a crew of us. When I returned in India in '77 for the summer and '78 for the summer, Arnavas would always call me over down at the end of the veranda where Falu sits, and immediately. And I would sit there for like 2 hours with her every day. And she would do all this talking. And I kept thinking like, well, this is a good scene. I don't have to do too much. She must think that I'm learning something. I wasn't quite clear what I was learning, but I was listening, and she would just tell Baba stories one after the other. And nobody else was on the veranda at a point. They all went into Mandalay Hall. And on occasion, Erich would come out and go, "Alan, why are you not in the hall?" And I would say, "Erich, I'm with Arnavas." And he'd say, "Come in the hall." And I'd say, "But I'm with Arnavas." And he'd say, "Come in the hall." And I would look at Arnavas, and she had this thing which she would go like that. "Doesn't matter, you go." So I would go in the hall, and it would crack me up. I didn't realize I was the only one out there because I was kind of attracted to the conversations. And this went on all summer because I was in law school at that time. In 2000 and December 2008, and then in January 2009, we were there in India, and Karen asked to stay an extra week to further take care of Arnavas, which she did. We were going to come back a week earlier, but she stayed on to help, like a lot of the women here have described. So the next, not year, because it was the same year, but the next December, we would go in December because Karen's schedule as a teacher. There was a memorial service for Arnavas, and her ashes, I guess, are in the garden next to Baba's room. I don't know if people realize that. And so we were asked to join this memorial service, and we looked at each other, and I don't know who asked probably it was a Vovi, I'm guessing, or Meru, and we said, us? Why us? He said, no, but you're part of the family. So Karen and I figured, all right, let's not say anything further. And what happened, there was a certain process that the Mandali had, mainly Meru, I guess, because she was, Katie was gone too. Katie had died in May. So I guess it was Meru. And the end of the service, the event, people would drop, I think, a flower into this little grave site, which was later covered. You'll see it if you go there. And Karen and I made sure we were the last two. We weren't sure we were supposed to be there, but we were there. We were asked, and we ran like a bandit and took it. Now, one funny incident in 1980, I was married. I was just taking the bar exam, and my friend David Miyake was there. We mostly talk about music or baseball. And Arnavaz came up to us one day. This is for all the women who had no idea Arnavaz had any interest in baseball. They're about to hear her entire experience of baseball. And she said, what are you two guys talking about? And I said, we're talking about baseball, which she knew nothing about. I said, it's like cricket. It's like cricket. The rules are a little different. I said, at this point, my boyhood team may win the championship. And they've been in the league since 1872. And it's 1980, 109 seasons. And they've never won the championship. So she was laughing. Miyake and I were laughing, and she was laughing. And I said, if they win the championship this year, it will be the proof that Baba has spoken the word and that what's going to happen has never happened before, will never happen again for billions upon billions of years. And she thought that was interesting. And she was laughing really hard, but she was wondering, could this be true? Well, as it turned out, they actually did win the championship that year, amazingly enough. That may or may not be proof Baba spoke the word, but they've won again about 12 years ago. So I guess it'll happen before billions upon billions of years. But that was Arnavas's, I guess, one conversation, went on for about a half an hour about baseball. And mostly she laughed, which is what she did mostly in conversation with me. That was my experience with Arnavas. It was very loving. It was funny. It was sweet. She liked to give me advice. God knows how much I absorbed of it. I'm just a guy. Unlike all the nice women here who are going through traumas, I was more concerned about whether my team would win a championship. So, Jai Baba to Arnavas, a great soul, very dear to my heart, and a wonderful human being. Happy Valentine's Day to all the folks here. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, Alvin. Thank you. Yeah, I've come to have an appreciation of baseball again recently. Thank you. Now, I'm just going to remind everyone that would like to share, if you would raise your hand digitally. It's pretty simple. On a PC, you just hit Alt-Y, and on a Mac, you hit Option-Y, and that will raise a hand, and then I'll know you guys want to share. In the meantime, I don't know if how about we? Very nice. Jai Baba.
Hopefully I'll unmute properly.
Yes.
Okay. This is a little quote from Arnavaz would always tell us this. Baba said, the trouble with you is that you do not leave everything to me. If you would leave everything to me, then the responsibility would be mine. And I don't know why, but the date 14th March, when I was, for some reason I was 14th March, and very often she would tell us this, and how lovely to leave everything to him. Then he would take over. My husband, Hoshan, was there. We had all of us, the whole family, and like we were like the children, Hoshan and Savomi. And so I would very often, I was very lucky to take birthday cake for Mera. Like Arnavaz would give me specifications. This is how you order the cake, and this is how we want it. There are many, many little errands which we enjoy doing. Now, Hoshan would like to interrupt. It's okay. He's not on the line, but it's all right. Can he speak now, please? Sure. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
1 minute, Ruth.
Yeah,
Sure,
take your
come on.
time. Jai Baba.
This is the first time I met
Over the course
Arnavaz.
of, are you hearing?
Can you hear me?
I can hear
Hello?
you, but I can't see you now.
Okay, thank
Okay.
you. This is the first time I met Arnavaz was in the year 1941. Can you imagine? Exactly 80 years back.
Hey, bully, go ahead.
Acha. It was, we had just come from, my brother Nariman had called us from Karachi. We were living in Karachi, and my mother, myself, and my other brother Behram, we came from Karachi and settled down in Bombay. And my first meeting, I would use the word with Meher Baba, was in a place called Loravla on the way to Pune from Bombay. It is on the Ghats. And can you imagine where I met Baba? I had just heard about Meher Baba. I never had a photo in my house. Nobody mentioned the word Meher Baba in our house in Karachi. But when I came to Bombay, starting from Arnavaz and Nariman, they were like our, not brother and sister, but they were like our parents, my father, mother, sister, whatever you may call them. And in the bungalow called Kismat, can you hear the word Kismat means luck? For the first time, I met Meher Baba in Loravla. That was in the year 1943 when Nariman and Arnavaz got engaged in a bungalow called Kismat. So that was the first time I saw Meher Baba. But I felt that he is a man who is not an ordinary person. He is a saintly person. And well, people call him Avatar, or that time he was not even called Avatar. He was called Meher Baba, and Arnavaz was always there with us to guide us in every respect. She was very, very loving towards the whole family. We were very young that time, and my children also adored her. My children, Rayaman and Mehruk, and even my granddaughters also, Gulrukh and Meher. And whenever Baba would come Ashiana, to stay at Ashiana in Mumbai, Arnavaz would definitely encourage me to come to the Ashiana, and even with her home also, and would see to it that I drive Baba. I was his chauffeur, you may call him, or a driver in Bombay, carrying the most precious cargo in Bombay, wherever Baba wanted to go. I never knew where he was going or anything like that, but Dheeraj would guide me, and Baba would sit at the backside, and according to his guidance, we would go to Bombay, driving in Bombay at different places. You see, Arnavaz was very, very, I will use the word smart, very righteous, and at the same time, you may not know, but she was our partner in business also. And every time I would go to Meherazad to stay there, she would always keep asking the question, how is the business? And she would keep an account of that business also. And so she was very particular and would always ask questions about the profit and loss account and everything. And one day she told us a story that Baba, this is the most beautiful story I have ever heard from Arnavaz. She said, remember this also. One day Baba told us a story of money and Arnavaz in Meherazad. She said that Baba said Listen to this. The past is history. The future is a mystery. It's what you don't know what's going to happen in the future, but the present is the present gift from the God man where past is history. The future is a mystery, but the present is a present from the God man where So let us always remember one thing, that the present is the gift from the God man, because we have heard his name. His name has fallen on our ears. How fortunate we are that his name has fallen on our ears. How fortunate we are that we have accepted him as the avatar of the age. He has given us the courage and the conviction to accept him as the avatar of the age. That is the most precious gift of God. And on 20th, we were invited to Meherazad on 21st, 22nd, and 23rd December 1968, just 40 days before Baba dropped upon me, for the navjot of our children, my son, Rayuman, my daughter, Meheru, the other
nephew and
Dadachanji, Arnav's other son, and Meherazad Dolly's sister's daughter. So Baba gave us that opportunity to meet him in person just 40 days before he dropped the body. And when Mani asked Baba, hey, can my son Rayuman was hardly 10 years old and he has a box camera strapped and everything. Can he pick your picture? And Baba said, yes, that was the last picture he took of where Baba in black and white. And that picture is now hung in the Manji Hall in the center of the wall on the right hand side. You can, whenever you go to Meherazad, you see that picture was the last picture taken by Alexander Rayuman. You got this golden opportunity to take him. Whenever Baba would come to Bombay, from Pune in Guru Prasad, they were given golden opportunity to go to Meherazad, go to Guru Prasad twice a day, morning and evening session. And we had wonderful time of our life, nearly 6, 7, 8 years in Guru Prasad. Those were the glorious days that we saw Baba in different moods, different positions, and he took so much interest in our business that because of Nariman, that he was literally keeping a track also and asking for accounts every now and then. And that's how our connection was. One second, please. Arnavaz. So that is what I wanted to say. And Arnavaz was so particular that every time I would go and stay at Meherazad in the morning on days when visitors were not coming, she would come to my room and we would sit together and she would ask for business account and everything. So that particular trait of hers was the most wonderful trait. And she would always note down everything. And next time when I would go there, she would reopen the chapter and again ask for the position also. And that was the beauty of her. She was very loving, very caring, and most people, she brought us nearer and nearer and nearer to Baba. And on her lips, it was only Baba and nothing else. And my brother Nariman and Arnavas were fortunate that we had brother like Nariman and a sister like Arnavas. The whole family adored them, and we remember them always, always, always. Thank you very much. I don't think I don't have any much time to waste. You are tired now. And
did you hear everything, please?
Yes, thank you so much. Beautiful.
thank you.
Anything more, Kavavi?
This is the first
You know,
time.
somebody mentioned Love Street lamppost, and I have a beautiful. I have that lamppost supposed to be Love Street lamppost. I don't know if you could see it, but look at her lovely smile,
Oh, gosh.
$1 million smile there. Are you getting to see it?
Yeah, beautiful. So beautiful. And her
Yeah,
bobbin
so
neck, beautiful.
yeah. She was a great person. We loved her very much, and we're looking forward. Every time on 18th, we have a very sweet picture of her which we garland for us, garlanding. For a long while during this thing, we were not allowed to bring garlands and flowers into the home because of this COVID. But now I merely bring any amount of garland. Can't do it to the Samadhi, but in our Baba home. Anyway, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity of sharing about our beautiful, lovely, like a mother figure to us, Arnavaz. Arnavaz, a gift of God and a gift to all of us. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. I think you said it just right there. Jai Baba. Well, I'm
Now
looking. Yes?
Hoshan. Yeah, there's Hoshan. If you didn't see him while we spoke.
Thank you.
Thank you. Jai Baba.
Awesome.
Well, I'm looking to see if anyone else has anything to share. I have a little clip of a little slideshow. So maybe this would be a good time. I'll just bring it up and show this.
We'd love to see it. We'd love to see it.
Oh,
Sure,
I think, let me see if I can get it together here. There we go. Do this, and here.
I awake to the presence of God. No other presence exists for me. As I arise, I commit my heart, my mind, my soul, my body, my affairs to God. He will direct the unfoldment of life. Whatever I think or say or do, He will inspire. Whatever I touch or taste or smell, whatever I see or hear, He will infuse with His living presence. Together we will move in love and light and peace and joy and power, in grace and beauty. Together, in constant communion, we will attend to His affairs. I am alive with the presence of God. No other presence exists for me. Blessed are those who can rest from speech to dwell in a holy silence. Blessed are those who can rise from thought to the fullness of pure knowing. Blessed are those who, detached from deeds, can rest in their own true being. I awake to the presence of God. No other presence exists for me. As I arise, I commit my heart, my mind, my soul, my body, my affairs to God. He will direct the unfoldment of life. Whatever I think or say or do, He will inspire. Whatever I touch or taste or smell, whatever I see or hear, He will infuse with His living presence. Together we will move in love and light and peace and joy and power, in grace and beauty. Together, in constant communion, we will attend to His affairs. I am alive with the presence of God. No other presence exists for me. Blessed are those who can rest from speech to dwell in a holy silence. Blessed are those who can rise from thought to the fullness of pure knowing. Blessed are those who, detached from deeds, can rest in their own true being.
Beautiful.
Jay Baba.
Jai Baba.
Well, I'm trying to get back onto Zoom here and having an issue. Let's see. I see. Sorry. Takes me a second. Jay Baba. Anyone would like to speak? Jeff, have you something? Dan? I see you guys are here.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. Well, I guess most of you know that Baba had asked Arnavaz to be the people in the Bombay area to speak with when they got into problems, when they had problems. He designated her to be that one. And naturally, in the early years of going to Meherazad and Meherabad, I would go every year. And in the early years, back in the early 70s and everything, I was always having one problem after another. And of course, I would invariably, Arnavaz had a way of getting everything out of you. But with great acceptance, back in my early years, I was into, you might say, I was thought of the spiritual life as self-improvement, improving and improving. And I would come to her with a lot of my problems, my personal problems, and she kind of conveyed this acceptance. And I actually found she kind of, she instilled in me a sense of self-acceptance. And I found self-acceptance was so much closer to Baba than self-improvement. Self-improvement is a future thing. Self-acceptance is in the present. She was very wonderful about that. And as you all know, she really was very accepting of the whole range of human experience without judgment. I didn't feel that. And so she was a beautiful thing that I found with the Mandali, and especially her, is when I first met them, they responded to me as I had always known myself, and yet they were just meeting me for the first time. As I had known myself my whole life, that was the one they were responding to, and they were just, so they must have, tuned into the essence of who we are, and they didn't have to have all the details. They were connecting, and that's what we kind of knew about ourselves. But there were a couple of sayings, of things that Baba said to her that were very helpful in my life. And one was, I didn't ask you to feel me, I asked you to love me. That had a deep meaning for me, because in my early years, I felt when I wasn't feeling Baba, I wasn't loving him. And I try to get that feeling back. And I realized that I had the love there even if I wasn't feeling it. And that was to make the distinction between feeling and love. In other words, so for example, I might be feeling very depressed, and someone gets in an auto accident right out from the house, and I'll run out and help them and get them to the hospital and everything. It wasn't dependent upon my mood or how I was feeling. The loving response came from a different part of myself. And the other quote, that something Baba said to her that has been invaluable, and I've had to suffer this, the truth of this is a very unfortunate truth, where Baba said, it is nothing to give in when you are wrong, but it has spiritual value to give in when you are right. That was a hard one. That has been a hard one. It is nothing to give in when you are when you are wrong, but it has spiritual value to give in when you are right. And that's very hard lesson. It's hard to know that you might be right in the situation, and yet you have to give in, just for the harmony or the peace of a situation, or the preserving the love in the situation. You may have to give in even when you're right. And I know a lot of couples know that lesson many-fold, many times over. Anyway, those are, but what, I mean, the Mandali were just, they were, you might say, a practical or what, a visible human example of how Baba wants us to be. You know, very personal, connected, interested, engaged. They could have gone off after Baba dropped his body and just been alone with their thoughts of Baba. But they took that one pointedness that they had put on Baba all those years, they turned that to a bunch of ragamuffins of us. And we got that intimate attention. So anyway, that's what I have to share.
Jeff, that's beautiful. Thank
Yeah.
you so much.
Yeah.
And what about Nan? Do you have?
I just am thankful for having had a lot of opportunities to be with Arnavaz. I wish I had been able to take some of the lessons when she gave them instead of taking a long time to accept them. Sometimes some of her main lesson I had a hard time accepting, which is about acceptance, of course. But I was able to spend kind of informal time. She was such a great model of femininity and obviously of kindness, just and naturalness and being down to earth. And one of my jobs was painting the porch outside of her room. And so I got to be hanging out there a lot, which is great. And I had been a painter in America, amongst other things. So I got to spend kind of downtime, you know, drinking buttermilk together. That just informal time with a lot of them, which I'm very thankful for. And then when her hip was broken, I got to do the kind of thing a lot of people are describing, just spending time with her in her room with her as she was in and out of sleep. But again, it's just, I don't have, you know, I can't remember specific quotes but just her naturalness. I appreciate.
Yes, and I heard you speak to the femininity.
And I liked hearing about that she was a businesswoman too. I think if I ever knew it, I forgot it. And I love that, to me, they go together. They're not separate, though we don't often talk about it. And her smartness, I like to hear about her smartness. Yeah, she was all there, all present. I remember going to her after 9/11. We were in India during 9/11 and saying, you know, the people in Meherazad are saying you shouldn't feel anything because it's God's will. And I feel something. I feel sad, and I basically said I don't like to be told off for feeling, And she said, don't listen to them. Of course you shouldn't be a stone. Of course you have feeling. Of course something, And that was very reassuring and kind of her to acknowledge, whatever I felt didn't matter. It was like, don't listen to those people telling you not to feel. So anyway, thank you.
Hey, Baba. Thank you, Nan. That's beautiful. Get your ticket punched. She knew how to do that. Karen, I know you have your hand up.
Okay. Say Baba to everyone. First, I'd like to show one of my favorite pictures. If you can see it, I don't know. Tea. There are two memories that I'd like to share. The first one is, I don't remember what year it was, would have been in the early 2000s. And I was having issues at my work, and I was I spent part of the time sending emails back and forth to get a particular program approved and going through a lot of difficulties through this process. And without having spoken to Arnavaz, she came up to me one day in Mandalay Hall. I think they were sitting down for a program. I think it was Mandalay Hall. And she just said, "Leave no stone unturned." And I always remember that, because while we could talk to Arnavas and share everything, and she would give us loving advice, here was a situation where I had not mentioned anything, and she gave me everything I needed to hear. So that was very special. Another wonderful memory I have is of her family. We were at Meherazad in her room. And again, I did have the wonderful good fortune of being able to be there on one of our trips. And her two nieces, Meher and Gulruk, were there. And with their beautiful voices, they sang a song on Arnavas's bed, and she was glowing listening to them, and so happy to hear this beautiful music of their voices together. And if I remember correctly, Cindy Lowe was also there, and Cindy was singing her song as well. So that was very, very beautiful. And I also have lovely memories of Falu coming in and helping Arnavas with her meals. And it was very precious and a very precious memory. So Havovi and Hoshang, we truly honor what you've shared with us and are so grateful, because she treated us like family. You were family, but Arnavas treated us as her family as well. So Jai Baba to everyone, and thank you for this wonderful program. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Meher, did you have something for it?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you.
I don't know. It's okay if the videos are not on. I mean, so Karen just spoke about Arnavaz with my two daughters, Gulruk and Meher. You know, all her life she was so loving, so giving, and this was in 2008. 2009, just before she passed. It was, I think, the day after Amar Tithi, and we went over to Meherazad, and you know, it was a time when she was sort of drifting. She was a lot of times not at all awake, and we waited the whole day waiting for her to get up. And my daughter, Gulruk, was shortly going to leave for Australia to study. And this would perhaps be the last time, or at least we didn't know it was to be the last time, but she was very, you know, she wanted to say her goodbye to Arnavaz. We waited the whole day, but, you know, she was sleeping, and of course we didn't wake her up. And just as we were getting into the car, I think it was Shelley who came running, who said, you know, Arnavaz is awake. And even so, in that moment, you know, all her life of sort of giving and loving, even in her subconscious, she gave Gulruk that gift. And that was perhaps the last day we saw her too. And, you know, Gulruk was, I mean, we could go back when she passed away and we went for her funeral. But Gulruk was away in Australia, and, you know, I'm sure she would have felt lousy had she gone away without, but Arnavaz Baba made her get up, and you know, she met Gulruk and embraced her, and so caring and loving and giving till the very end. So, and thank you, it was so beautiful. I mean, I'm not the kind who normally speaks, but when Karen spoke about Arnavaz and with my two girls, I just thought I'd share this. Thank you, Jai Baba.
Jai Baba, thank you for sharing such a beautiful, deep, heartfelt memory. What a gift. Oh, Jai Baba. Elizabeth, do you want to share something?
Yes, I actually have a story. I have a story about Arnavas. So I did not know her very well. And I met her at the end of her life. So I went the first time I ever went to Meherazad and Meherazad was 2005, 2006, December, January, and then 7/8, so 2 years later, December, January. And it was one of those times, I'm not sure which one, I think it was the first time. And I had been to the Elora Caves, and Daryl and Susan Smith were there, and I think Dave and Kay, I don't know, a group of us who were from the Chapel Hill, Durham area. And when we went to the Elora Cave, we went to the great big one with the Buddha in it. And there were monks there. I think they were from Tibet. They were wearing maroon colored robes. And I thought, wouldn't it be wonderful if we could hear them singing? Because there were a bunch of singers in the group. And so because I am the way I am, I went around searching for someone to ask them, would they sing in this gigantic cavern? And the guy couldn't speak English, but he brought someone who could. And I asked him, and he said yes. And they walked around the big Buddha. Well, I told when I went to visit Arnavaz, she was in bed. And I started telling her about this most amazing thing that happened. And then she said, she put her hand on my hand. She says, you know, that's exactly what happened when we went there with Baba. And so she and Mara and Baba and some other Manjali had been to that very same cave with the big Buddha. I mean, the gigantic Buddha. And then I think there's one lying down. And while they were there were Buddhist monks there who must have sung. But I could not believe it. I was just amazed that it chokes me up. The same thing that happened to Arnavaz happened to me. So I just was, made me feel connected to her, even though I didn't know her that well. And there was one other time that we went to see her, and a group of us sang to her. And of course, she just loved the music. Maybe, I can't remember who was playing guitar, but we were surrounding her bed and singing. And really, that's as much as I know, except I think she's a beautiful, gorgeous woman. And I just really loved her, just meeting her. Such a short time. Anyway, that's all. Che Baba.
That's beautiful, Elizabeth. Hey, Baba. Thank you. Well, I'm just looking. I don't know if there's anyone else. Rosalie, I don't know if you are here and would like to share. I see your name, but I don't know if you have a share. So I'm just asking. Okay. Anyone else? You can double dip if you'd like. Okay. Well, if we're
hello, this is Barbara Roberts in Colorado on the phone.
Hi, Barbara.
Hi, and it's just a really quick story about Arnavaz. I was there one time, and we were out on her little veranda, and a group of people asked, well, Arnavaz, we don't have any orders. What orders? Baba didn't give us any orders. What orders do we follow? And she kind of, well, maybe not rolled her eyes, but said, well, you know what you're supposed to do and be decent to people and all that kind of thing. But what you do is first thing in the morning, wake up and say, Baba, make me do your wish and will. And then do as you feel and think best throughout the day. And then at the end of the day, thank Baba for making you do his wish and will. So.
Jay Baba, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Let's see. Oh, Barbara K. Barbara Kassenberg, someone wondered if you would mind, Robin was asking, would you mind sharing once again about the sadness?
Yes, I put it on the chat, but I'll say it again.
Great.
It's the path of sorrow, and that path alone leads to the place where sorrow is unknown.
So beautiful. Thank you. I'm looking for it in the chat. I'm going to copy it and keep it. Put it on my mirror so I can see it every day in the morning. All right. Anyone else? Any other memories that have come? Michelle? Jay Baba.
Jay Baba. I just remember that Arnavas gave the most practical, direct advice. And I had married a man who is 18 years older than me with 3 children. And the girls were rather cruel. And when I went to see Arnavas, and this is 95, December, she just told me very directly, these are Baba's children. So you need not to worry, but you treat them and you take care of them. They're Baba's children. And you leave it to Baba and it'll be better. It'll be okay. And so that's what I did. And I have my own son who's 17. And that's what I do now with him. He's Baba's child. I'm his caretaker, caregiver, but he's Baba's child. So that's all. That she was just very, how precious and how fortunate we all are to have that time with them. And some of you had much more time, but it was such a blessing and such a gift. Jay Baba, and thank you for all your beautiful stories. Just so lovely, really wonderful. Thank you, Baba. Beautiful love gifts. And Alan, I had to look up who won the World Series in 1980 because I had no idea. It was the Phillies.
That's great. All right. Thank you. Thank you, Michelle. Beautiful.
Jay Baba.
Jay Baba, such gifts from such an amazing soul. Baba, God's gift. All right. I'm just going to wait another second and see if anybody else has anything they want to contribute. Just raise your hand. Okay. Well, I think then what we'll do is have a moment of silence in memory of Baba's wonderful gifts to us in the form of Arnavas as well. Jai Baba. Jai Baba. We'd all like to unmute and we can give our avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar.
Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Meher Baba
Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai.
Jai Baba.